Behind every great session, there's a GM who's working really hard. And there are some things that we'd love to tell our players, but we usually don't. So here are 8 things that I think are really helpful for players to hear, but also for GMs to relate to. I'm XPLovecat, and if you like RPG content, feel free to subscribe to my channel as it helps me grow and reach more people. Number 1 is GMing takes a lot of energy. So this is energy during the session, but also before the session. We're working really hard to do a lot of planning. Sometimes this means making encounters, maps, monsters, anything that takes a lot of prep work, putting together the clues for a certain scenario or whatever adventure we're running. GMing also takes a lot of energy at the table. You're playing a lot of different roles. You're like the director, an actor, a referee, you're all the things, including being a storyteller and moving things along. So there's a lot to manage at the table. And although it can be a ton of fun, it also can be exhausting. So if we need to take breaks or if we're pretty drained after a session, don't take that personally. It's just, it takes a lot of energy to manage everything at the table. Number 2 is we get nervous. So even if you have been GMing for years, there's a possibility that your GM will still be a little bit nervous when they go into a session. It can be a lot of pressure to kind of have a group of people looking to you to lead a session and to answer all their questions and be flexible and improv as you go. So even after I've been doing it for a really long time, I still get a bit of anxiety and nerves in the beginning. They usually fades as I get into the game and we get on a roll and get going. But just know that if you as a player are feeling a little bit nervous, that you're in good company because it's likely that your GM is too. Number 3 is we're always improvising and adjusting. So even if we've spent hours preparing, there are things that will happen that your players are going to do that you're not intending them to do. And this is totally normal. You can't plan for everything, and I would say you shouldn't plan for everything. And this means that there's always going to be some improvising and adjusting of what you previously thought might happen. And so just know that this takes a lot of work because there's a cascade effect if something happens. If something changes and information is given in a new location or a clue is given in a different way, then all the other pieces down the line might need to be adjusted as well. So we're constantly thinking about how these things are going to play together and how we can keep moving the players forward. And so that means that this adjustment time, we might sometimes pause, we might hesitate when we say something, and it's not necessarily that the character in the game is pausing and hesitating, it's just the GM thinking and making sure that all the pieces are going to line up. This also means that sometimes we have to retcon, so if there's something that we say and we learn later down the line that that probably wasn't true, usually the GM can say something to the effect of, oh, the NPC was lying to you or the NPC got wrong information, and that's a way to smooth it over. But there are times where you just have to admit, I as a GM kind of forgot about this, so forget about that piece of information and let's move on. And so just have a little bit of grace with us if that happens because we are always improving. Number 4, we love players who take notes. It is so nice when players take notes because the GM is managing so much on our side of the table that sometimes we'll either just say something or there's things that we have to look up in a book if we're playing a pre-made, and that can be difficult to flip between different chapters depending on how lengthy the scenario or campaign is. And so players that take notes and take agency in their own gaming experience is really helpful. Just for us as a GM to lighten that load, but also it's really fun to watch when players can put the pieces together themselves, and this is usually better accomplished if they've taken notes and they can refer back to things. So if we have a situation where the player's like, oh my gosh, we saw that symbol in 3 sessions ago, it can really be satisfying for us as a GM to have them do the work to put the pieces together and figure out different puzzles or different clues. So that's really a fun thing for us to see, and it lightens the load. So if you want to be your GM's favorite, take lots of notes. Number 5 is we love creativity. Now, of course, role-playing games are basically all creativity. We're in an imaginary world pretending and role-playing, but when we think about combat or different ways of getting into places they're sneaking into, there are a lot of opportunities to be really creative about how you do these things. So even if the rule set that you're working with might not have a specific rule for backflipping over an enemy to get to another enemy, that is something that you should still feel encouraged to bring up at the table and ask your GM how you can achieve that, because we love seeing creativity, we love storytelling, and putting together some of the pieces that might be from something that we never imagined and can make a scene really come to life. So don't be afraid to go out of the box and be really creative with different things in combat or different ways that you're interacting with NPCs. Anything where you get a really fun idea, make sure to bring it up at the table, because I'm sure that your GM would be willing to work with you to make that happen. Number 6, phones kill confidence. So I know that our lives are on our phone, and of course emergencies happen and things happen that we need to check on. But if you are pulling out your phone because you're a little bit bored with what's going on at the table, or because you're not totally engaged, that can really be a killer to the GM's confidence, just because you are trying so hard to make everything be fun for everyone. And so it's a distraction for other players, it's a distraction for the GM to have a player there that's looking at their phone, and it also just knocks us down a little bit when we've put so much time and energy and effort into preparing the game, and then someone decides they don't really want to be there or be engaged. So just be aware of that if you do take out your phone, or you can quickly explain or excuse yourself if there is an emergency and something that you need to check. That's not a problem at all. It's just basically if you're trying to fill the time with your phone. Instead, try being a little bit more engaged with the table. Even if your character is not directly involved, you can still be an observer or be looking up rules or looking up something for your character that might be helpful for the game itself. Number 7 is we love player roleplay and narration. And what I mean by that is I love it when my players roleplay within themselves. So if they're making a plan for a mission and there's no NPCs involved, but they're roleplaying their characters and they are talking amongst themselves, I love when my players do this, because one, it can give me time to take a back seat, chill for a minute, catch my breath, or look up something that I need to look up while they're busy role-playing. And 2, it also gives me really good insight to their characters and their plans for the future. So if they say certain things, then I can start planning in my mind what's going to happen later in the session. And then it also gives me an opportunity to learn more about their characters and how I can pull different strings to play with their emotions or hit their characters' weak points. And so that is really interesting for me to observe. And kind of on that same vein is I love when players take over narration. So this is like if there's a really cool maneuver in combat, instead of me taking on that narration, I hand it over to the player and they can describe what's happening. And again, this just allows me to take a little bit of a breather and a back seat, and it allows them to use their creativity to help collaboratively tell the story and bring all of the scenes to life. So oftentimes I will just ask a player if they want to narrate what's going on as opposed to me. Number 8 is we love feedback. And this is both positive and negative feedback. So positive feedback is great because we get to learn what you like about playing the game, you like about the sessions or the game system, so that we as GMs can adjust and add more of those things. Like if you love puzzles, tell us that so we can add more of that. Or you love role playing, or you love a certain element of combat, like tell us that so that we can add more of that into the game and make it more fun for you. Also, positive reinforcement is just nice for the GM when they're putting a lot of time and energy into the game. So it's a really nice opportunity to hear those things that players like. But we also like to hear constructive criticism. If there's things that you really don't like about how we are playing the game, or you don't like about a specific part of the plot that might be uncomfortable for you, or whatever the case is, we like to hear what's not going well for you so that we can adjust that as well. So there you have it, 8 things GMs wish their players knew. And if you want more player advice videos, let me know down in the comments, as this is a video style that I haven't done too much of, but I would love to talk more about it if people are interested. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.